Welcome to The Naked Architect. Today we're inviting you inside the Dark House, a wonderfully atmospheric project designed by the Rexroth Mannasmann Collective. Inside we'll be talking with architect Kirsty Fletcher and her clients Natalie and Glyndon about what it was like to work with an architect on the design of this beautiful project. So welcome. It's lovely to have you all with us today to chat with us about what it's like to work with an architect. I suppose we should start with Glyndon and Natalie. I'm really interested to understand whether you both had worked with an architect before and how you chose an architect to work with.
No, we'd never worked with an architect before. Always been fascinated by the process and the idea of it. And the way we found Rexroth and Kirsty and Giles in particular was we were looking to buy houses in the area, and there was one house in particular that we came across and we just really liked the way it felt, and we could see that it had some work done to it. And we asked the real estate agent who the architects were and introduced us really. That's how it began, yeah.
Which is not a bad way to go about finding an architect, because then you've got a kind of feel, even if it's not exactly what you want, you know that you've been in the space and that appeals to you.
And Kirsty, what do you do when you meet new clients? How do you walk them through the process? What are those initial conversations that you have?
I think a lot of architects in the domestic space are kind of a little bit different and kind of the same in the way they start. We start with a phone call to find out budget, project, where it is, so we can do some reverse stalk of the project and see, all right, that's going to have these overlays, or it's going to be, this or that's tight. Hear a little bit about what the program is that people are after and timeframes, and we generally go to meet people on site for an hour or so. We generally work as a pair. That's just how we organise our office. And talk about it, talk about the project, talk about fees, talk about the process, talk about what it's like to work with an architect, and then follow up with some really dry paperwork on a copy of the client architect agreement and fee structure and things like that, so that you've got people have met us, we've talked about the project and understand what the project is, we've talked about budget and time frame, and we've talked about the fees and process involved. So I think it's really good to meet your architect or meet a number of architects and see how you feel with them, how you gel with them, if what they want to deliver or do deliver is the sort of thing that you want from them, so that you can match up, because it's a long process, maybe on a short project it's 2 years talking about a lot of stuff that's really intimate to you. So you want a good fit. That's the long answer.
Yeah. And how long did this process take?
I was going to add, we didn't talk to any other architects.
So you didn't do your homework.
It just felt
okay.
right.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
It just felt right. But that process, it was a long process with us, not through any other reason other than it was probably financial and us working out kind of what we wanted. But embarrassingly, it was almost 10 years from when we first met to when we kind of pulled the trigger. It was 2011. I guess it was a process of working out what we wanted as well, because we could do, you can do anything. So what is it? What do we like? Where are we being drawn to? So it was an on and off, and it was really financial. And I think I would call Kirsty and Giles every 6 months or a year or something, and we kind of kick-started again. And until really it got to the point of, it's now or never. We've just got to do it and leap off, and fingers crossed everything will work out, Yeah.
But also, right from the beginning, because we did end up doing some stages, we needed a new roof. That was the first thing. We bought this place and the hall was leaking. It would run down rain would run down the hallway, and it needed restumping. And we needed heating. So they were massive financial jobs that we kind of had to do before we even started thinking about fixing up the kind of the lean-to at the back of the house.
Mm-hmm. And we could look at it and say, yep, re-stump this section, go for it.
Yep.
Do the heating, get it to this point, allow for some extra, redo the roof, do those. if you're happy organising them directly, then you don't have to pay a builder margin and you can just get them done, and then that cost can...
How did you kind of develop up the brief for the project? How did you guys work to kind of do that?
I think, well, we listened to like big, like broad conceptual ideas from Kirsty and Giles. And I remember even before we got into like details of layout or kitchen or anything, we just got these very simple designs of roof lines and very small cardboard models of, you know, of what the roof line would look like as an extension. And we were really thinking about, you know, the classic double-fronted Brunswick house that we live in and how we could continue the double roof line out, which I was really into, and they sort of turned into 2 pavilions. And I think we were then feeding through ideas about what we liked visually, like almost like mood boards. And there was definitely a point where I felt confident.
Where we shifted from kind of like country, French, provincial, light, colourful to Darth Vader's bathroom.
But there was definitely a point in that process where I could see how Giles and Kirsty were working, and I really liked the process, and I liked their taste, and I liked what they were introducing me to, or us to. But like I was getting really excited, and there was a point where I sort of handed over the reins and said, "I think we should let you do whatever you want to do, like within reason.
Within
reason, yeah.
Not with complete autonomy, like
You know,
there was an ownership of sorts handed over, but it was still, I mean, we work very collaboratively, so, you know, it was never going to be, I'll turn around, oh, now you like pink.
And honouring that it was a 10-year process. So once we kind of had the studio and the ensuite built, it was like, okay. Our kind of family was changing. Like we went from little kids with blocks and toys on the floor to kind of having teens and needing another bathroom. So this idea of me and my country kind of porcelain sink shifted, you know, and it was like, okay, let's kind of get a little bit more sophisticated, like, because the kids aren't going to bash everything.
Yeah.
So the process was, I suppose, getting the practicalities done, and then the ensuite and the studio at the front. Is that how it worked? And then this was more of a kind of a concerted effort once you realised there would be no like perfect time.
Yeah. There was it like, what do you call it, stage A and 1 or 2 or whatever it was. But we knew we wanted an ensuite. We had a studio at the front that was kind of working the way we wanted to, but we knew we could make that better. And it was, I don't know, it was a taster of what it's like to build. And that was our first time we'd ever really built anything. And it made such a huge difference in the house. And I really love the design that particularly for our ensuite, which is a really small room, like I really love the design. And I just went, wow, imagine if we kept going.
Throughout the project, we were looking at what bits can make sense to do when and how can we stage it. And some people have a big lump of money or a lump of money, whatever size it is, it always feels big, that can be spent. Some people have income that kind of comes in chunks, whatever. So, you know, you try and tailor how much work can I do to suit how the budget works, or, you know, I want all of this or need all of this, or how can we get that? Let's just bite the bullet and do that, or do, you know, bite-sized kind of pieces to it. So it made sense to do those 2 bits. Even for this back bit, it was broken up into packages where we'll do the volume and get the kitchen functioning, and then joinery can come later. Sometimes when you break it into lumps, there's not a great cost impact, and sometimes you're having the builder come back to do the same work or working over the top of things. So you, particularly in domestic work, it makes sense to try and get the best value for money to spend, and it might be that you put it off for another 2 years so you can do all of that because it makes sense to do all of that at once.
And often when we work, everybody's kind of got a set idea of the budget and what they think they want, but as the process unfolds, things change. So was there a point at which maybe the scope changed and you had to manage the budget, and how did you do it? And, you know, what was the kind of impetus for that change?
One of the things that came up is COVID. So we were kind of one of 5 families, 20 families that got the incentive to build. So we were ready to go ahead. That was actually our tipping point. So that changed, and that was a pro.
Even though Nat and I are very visual and we're quite good at visualising the space as it was coming together, it's kind of, you know, who we are as well, as to stand there and go, this is amazing, but what if? It sent us down a rabbit hole of standing out with masks in the middle of COVID, actually getting permits or something, I don't know. It was very stressful, but like trying to find an antique glass person that could do veneer glass. Like it was actually really a simple idea turned into one of the more complex things that we did in the house.
And because there's a lot of very beautiful glass, there's not a lot of very beautiful glass that you can use in windows bigger than this. And that's not really a window. A fair proportion of the things that changed on this were during construction, either a reaction to something that we couldn't achieve, like a black ceiling over the kitchen was very technically difficult, and the project we think is richer for it not being black. So, you know, either they were things that were discovered on site and come on and think, oh, what could we do here? The more you can organise before you start building, the better.
Yeah.
However, it's also a good point to speak up before it's built if you want things to not be where they are. If you think, all right, we're building, I know this is not ideal, but actually we think it's better if it's not there or it's more like this. So it's not easy, but it's, you know, you just roll with it. Yeah. And it's often better for it.
But that goes, I suppose, to different people's ways of working. And I suppose communication is really key during that process. And it sounds like you all had a really wonderful level of communication through the process.
There will be difficult conversations, and often they're on site when things feel really quite challenging. Or you might have to say, I know you love that, but I do not want that in my bathroom, or whatever it is. Like, you know, you need to be comfortable having those open discussions, and they're often about things that you feel really strongly about, or the architect might feel really strongly about, or over things that cost a lot of money. If you feel that your architect's on the same page as you, or it's at least open to the discussion, then it's a whole lot easier and it goes a lot better.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of kind of, I don't know, building permits and kind of standards and codes, was there anything significant on this project that might have impacted the design or how you had to solve a problem or things like that?
A little bit. We didn't need a planning permit on this project. There's often some trickiness with the energy rating because everyone loves windows. We all love windows, and windows let all the heat out. So the fact that this was boundary to boundary, that north was our main facade, and that we only got snippets of true windows in other locations meant that we didn't really have that. And the whole back facade is not all window. So we'd already reined that in, and so the energy rating didn't have too much of an impact on that. Mm-hmm. And to get light in, we did things like, you know, internal windows that mean that one window actually services 2 or 3 spaces.
Yeah, it's nice. How does it feel for you guys?
Living in it? Yeah. We love it. like, we joke saying like we don't want to leave, not just leave, like I don't want to leave the house, like I just like being here. But the idea of living in a, even though we're well lit at the moment, like this room and generally the house is quite dark. And I really like that. Most of what you do with an architect, it felt like is talking about layout and shape and design and structural. And I remember asking Kirsty or Giles one day, like, oh, what colour do you think it is? I think I was dealing with colour elsewhere in my life, and I was like, what's the paint colour? Have you got an idea? And I think it was Giles said, I think it's black. And I was like, black? And he was like, yeah, like black. And he described it, said it's a quiet space. And I thought, well, I really like that. That's getting me interested. And then I think we started talking about it's all black, like black on the ceiling, black on the walls, and that ceiling was meant to be black as well. And I keep saying but like we were all in. Like I really thought it was.
I wasn't convinced by the black. No, I will say I wasn't convinced by the black, but I was really, I remember early on the idea of this room is going to be a play with light. That was an idea that sustained me because, Glendon's involved in photography and film, and I'm involved in dance and this idea of kind of a theatre or a black space or then it becomes about the details of colour or the many shades of light that come in and shift and change. So with black, I was like, yeah, okay, let's see. So, you know, like I trusted these guys, that's for sure.
That's beautiful. What other consultants were involved in the project? Who do you need?
Yeah, typically you need a building surveyor who's going to give you a building permit. They can be through the council. We use a private one because then they're generally quicker. You need generally a structural engineer and a geotech, somebody to tell you what your soil's like. The structural engineer might organise them. You need somebody to do the energy assessment on most projects. I think anything under 50 square metres, maybe not. A builder, not really a consultant. Definitely need a builder, but yes.
And that was challenging too. The builder, wasn't it? Was that
only in that he was in Sydney?
moved?
Yes, so it's a little hard to build in Melbourne.
It's a lovely outcome, but
the day we signed the contract.
For me, it was really important to be able to speak to a builder. We'd had little bits done over the years where it was like, yeah, mate, wait and talk to the mister. And I was kind of like, dude, can you just talk to me? So it was really important for me to be able to talk to Craig, and I could speak to him and in a way that's not just about building, but it feels like it's like a relationship. So that then I could say, yeah, you know how that's such and such, we're going to change that. You know, Kirsty and Giles would often do the negotiating, but sometimes it would be, I'd just have to kind of drop something in with Craig or hear what his take on it was like.
So communication again, pretty critical.
Everything communication.
I think the other thing that's really lovely about the house is the relationship to the landscape. How did you kind of go about working on that?
It was definitely the last thing to go in. We thought about, we really want to do a garden, but we didn't really know when we were going to be able to afford it, because when you've gone through a build, the last thing you think you have is the money to, you know, landscape and everything. But I think we could see how beautiful the house was, and it was just like we were overwhelmed at how great it was. And we just bit the bullet and went like, let's just keep going and let's put a garden in at the same time, and the deck and the pergola. And it made such a difference just being able to complete the whole job and treat it all as one piece. Yeah.
And what were some of the key challenges? Like, were there kind of any big major things that you all had to kind of get together and resolve, or?
COVID?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big deal, like, because so the builder was stuck in Sydney. I was stuck in Sydney for the majority of the build. I think I came here once and it was a wooden frame. The frame was up. Might have had a roof on, I can't remember, but it was very rudimentary. Yeah. And the next time I stepped foot in the house, Nat and the kids were living here. Like, it was like I was away for a long time. And so communication was really important, like, because I wanted to be in here looking at everything and helping making decisions, and I just couldn't. Like, I was just on the other side of a screen a lot of the time.
I learned how to film a house on my phone. That was good enough for my husband to be able. He's like, "Can you not just walk past the drawers? Can you open them up? And can you close? And can you turn around and then take a video of that way and that way?" But I think the biggest thing probably that we had to work through was the black ceiling.
We wanted to use a really matte black, which is this one here. We didn't really realise that you need a team of guys. Like, it's so tall that you need scaff, and you need a team of guys to come in to spray it all so you don't get marks on it, and it dries quickly. And we painted it 2 or 3 times to see if we could get it, and it was just different crews, all the rest of it. And
it was like wearing dark underwear under a light dress. Yeah. Like, black hides everything in clothing, but not on the ceilings. It's more. And
then we had
particularly with the angle of light as well, like the way it was being exposed. Yeah, there's no way to hide.
And it changes too throughout the day. I'm really glad that we had that problem, because I think this is much more interesting and more sophisticated in the way the space is read than what we were going for. We're sort of up and over in black, and then those two ends something, which is nice, but it's not this.
There were a few problems that we kind of worked through.
Yeah.
And I think the working through ended up better than when there wasn't the problem. So, for example, the black stone bench, I fell in love with that piece of stone. Not the best choice for the budget, but we sat down and Kirsty went with us down the rabbit hole as to how we could make it work. And so that stone bench is also in the bathroom, which meant that we didn't have to buy, whatever it was, but we resolved it. And I remember it was an epic Zoom meeting, but getting to the end of it was like, yes, Kirsty, we did it,
I spent quite a bit of time in car parks with masks on looking at black samples of stone and piling them up and photographing them, which, it depends what your priorities are and what you're after. And if it's a material reaction, and that was really driving a lot of this project, was that kind of sensorial reaction to the materials, then you need to look at the materials, you need to see them, you need to hold them up and live with them for a while,
And I suppose in terms of we've kind of gone through the macro moves of the house. We're starting to get to the smaller ones. The house does have a lovely feeling of materiality to it. Was there anything kind of driving those choices, or did you kind of did everything play off the black or hinge off the kind of depth of the black?
I really liked being led by Kirsty and Giles as far as what the tiles would be, what our taps would be, all those details. And it wasn't they never said you're having this or you've got a choice of taps, it's these three. It was more, we'll curate some ideas for you and let's take you to some shops. So we went to some tile shops and
we also went to some really nice tile shops, and then we also went to someone's backyard.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can find enough of something that's already had a life or aged or is not in every Beaumont store or whatever it is, that is the right answer. And sometimes it's at a really good price.
I got so excited about looking at old lights, like pendant lights. And we went down this whole kind of, and I was like, oh my God, I found something on eBay. And Glendon looked at it and was like, hang on. And we worked out that the scale of it was so small, like these beautiful old 40s kind of Art Deco pendants were pretty, but they just weren't going to be, they just weren't going to have the punch. So, and that's how we ended up kind of finding the glass, like the local glass blower was just as affordable as, some really collecting and gathering on eBay.
The house definitely has a lot of personality. Do you think it's brought out your personalities, or do you think that your personalities have changed because of the house, just out of curiosity?
We're definitely way more sophisticated than we used to be. No, I don't
it's
know.
not like martinis.
But no, I think what's interesting is that it does feel like us, even though it's distant to where we began. If we didn't work with an architect, we wouldn't have ended up here. We would have ended up something else that we really liked. But it pushed us, and I always want to be challenged in what I'm creating. There's something about the quality of the build and the way that acoustically it's been treated that I love. I just love being here.
Curious to know what lessons you might have learnt along the way during the process.
There's times in the process, particularly when it was the price was flexing a little bit, it was getting a bit more expensive than what we were feeling comfortable with. We started cutting back on things. At one point we were going to cut back the doors that divide this room. I thought, well, I don't know, we're really going to use it. Is it a thing? Or maybe we just put the rails in, we think about the doors later on. But I'm really glad we just went, we're going to put the doors in. We use them all the time, 2 or 3 times a day almost. Those doors are moved. And there's a few other things that we cut corners on, and now sitting here a couple of years later, I wish we didn't cut those corners either. So I kind of wish we didn't get spooked by the price at the time and just saw that this is an opportunity to create something beautiful and we should go all in on it. What I learned is that you should really go for it, do everything you absolutely possibly can. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think what I realised is how important the living space is. It's a home, and it's just lovely to be here. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I learned is this is what architects do. You know,
Yeah.
this is what architects do.
It's beautiful. And Kirsty, from an architectural perspective, from the other side looking
Always
in.
learning. I've learnt a lot about black ceilings. We've got a lot of that. But on a more global kind of thing, I think it's reinforced for us that we like to work collaboratively. We like to really involve the clients in the process, to have open discussions about this is what we'd like to do, and work out, all right, what bits, how do you want to get on board? How do you want to be involved? And I think it's reinforced that process works for us. To trust that the problems will be better for being solved, but also there's a satisfaction in getting a project complete. You know, it's not always possible, and in the long run, most projects end up with a garden, etc. But when it can be done almost all at the same time, it's really satisfying. You know, that's a kind of personal bit where you get to see the garden grow up in the windows that are supposed to frame the garden, kind of thing. That's really lovely.
So we've got a question from the audience. The question is how you made the energy rating work, but also managed to use louvers in the facade.
Yeah, it's a good question. I love louvers. We love louvers. They give you 100% of opening or ventilation for your opening, rather than 50% with a shug or whatever amount it is with a casement. These have got a low E glass on them, so they're the highest performing glass we can get in the louver. The seal is pretty good. Louvers cannot be used in a passive house, so when you really need to seal the house, you can't use them. But we also then cut down on, in a good way, how much glass there is. They performed okay in terms of their low E glass, etc., and we didn't have a huge amount of glazing.
I suppose it's about thinking holistically about the project.
And we worked in with our energy assessor to say, hey, this is the sort of windows we want to use. Are we going to get away with them? We said, hey, yeah, this is what we've got. Can you test them? Oh, yes, that will meet what you need. This won't meet what you need. But for us, getting all of that to, pay for one window that completely opens, and then a number of windows that don't, and one that sort of half opens, the dollars spread around for the ventilation worked out too.
There's such a low percentage of homes in Australia that are designed by architects, but as we can see, there's an incredible amount of value that's been added to this project. How do you communicate that to people or potential clients, the kind of value that you can add?
I think it's a perennial question for architects and designers. How do you convey what it's like to be in a space and the value that's been added by designers? Things like open house go a long way, so that you can actually go in and see space. Like, you can look at every Instagram photo you like or magazine or whatever, but to be in the space. We always say with a new client, if you want to go and see other things we've done, these people will have you in their house. Go and look at things we've done, go and feel it, talk to them about what it's like and the before and after of it. Talk to people who've used architects about the feel, the quality, as well as the process, and visit spaces. That's what I'd say.
And no matter how you go about it, it's a complicated process. So having somebody to kind of help and advise and facilitate is actually really useful. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all for coming. I'd like you to join me in thanking Kirsty, Glendon and Natalie, and Giles back there. It's been a really wonderful conversation. Thank you for welcoming us into your house. Thank you for talking about the design from all respects. Thank you.
Thank you.